The ideas that gave birth to our nation are the ideas that our nation is resistant to right now, and we should talk about that all the time.
In a world where narratives are shaped by corporations and gatekeepers, independent voices matter more than ever. Badlands Media brings together citizen journalists, researchers, and independent thinkers.
The truth is triggering.
Question the narrative. Explore the facts.
It's authenticity, courage, resilience.
Search for the truth others won't.
It's not about being first or being right.
The information war is changing.
It's about being authentic.
Embrace the friction.
Embrace the friction.
Shut the f*** up.
Authentically antagonizing. Join the movement.
I'm going to say how I feel.
Follow Badlands Media.
This is about the future.
The Badlands. What are the Badlands? Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
It's nose of the grindstone.
And plenty to discuss today. Had a good chunk of coverage of geopolitics on Badlands Daily, so there'll be a little bit of overlap, but that's okay because we have a lot of things happening that are line up with the things that we've been discussing on this show for a while now. Points of affirmation of theories of what I think is happening. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. And the big story here, of course, is the news about Trump threatening to withdraw support from Netanyahu and Israel. So this is RT, but it's citing Channel 12. So Channel 12 is a hard outlet to cover because they only post in Hebrew. They don't really have an English version of their. They don't do English. They only do Hebrew. So what ends up happening is like Jerusalem Post will, post their stuff, or Times of Israel, or Barak Ravid is one of the journalists. Like he'll post a lot of times to Axios. And so it's like being reported from different angles. Like it's saying, okay, Axios, this is told to Axios, this is told to Channel 12, this is told to, it was told to Barak Ravid. So Barak Ravid's the guy that we've been talking about a bunch. He's the former Israeli military intelligence guy turned journalist, Trump's go-to. He works for Axios. He also works for Channel 12. And he like I said, he's Trump's preferred agent for deploying narratives. I don't think Ravid is anti-Netanyahu. He doesn't like, it's pretty clear he doesn't like Netanyahu. I don't know if I'd say he's anti-Zionist though. I don't know if I'd say he's certainly not anti-Israel. I don't know if I'd say he's anti-Zionist. Because I have seen him shill for the Iran war in certain moments. I have seen him in certain moments shill for war in general. Most of the time, though, he is positing, articles that are negative Netanyahu. And a lot of this stuff comes from Trump. Like he seems to be the guy that Trump goes to whenever Trump wants to put out rhetoric against Netanyahu. And that's always notable. I think in the context of this reporting, it was an interview, a phone interview that Trump was doing, I think with Channel 12. That's how it was originally reported. Again, it was Barak Ravid, but this story was circulating on X for a while yesterday, and I didn't really share it because it had no sourcing to it. It just said Trump said he's gonna, people just posting, well, Trump said he's gonna pull support for Israel. My guess is that these people were hearing this from Channel 12 in Hebrew. And then they were talking about it online in English. And then later, Barak Ravid posted about it himself after he like went on Channel 12 and talked about this, is my understanding. That's what it seems like to me. Again, it's annoying because, again, Israeli media doesn't do English. They only do Hebrew. And it's interesting that Trump goes to them and gives them totally different stories than he gives the English-speaking press. Like, I think that's really notable. I think that's kind of part of his genius, part of his madness, is that he sows chaos by giving different information in different languages. And Barak Ravid, I don't know how he chooses who he's going with, if he's going with Axios, if he's going with Channel 12. But the reason I say all this is just, this is all part of like the 5th generation warfare. Because again, this story was circulating for an hour or two yesterday online, maybe a few hours before it got officially reported in English. So this stuff is just, it's kind of maddening to track, because you will get it in the Hebrew media, and then you won't be able to confirm it. And I don't like doing, there are a lot of people who like to just post the headline. They don't post the sourcing. They don't post the link. They like to act like it's their reporting or something. I don't like doing that. I think that's really clickbaity and grifty. Okay, so let me pull up what I can from Barak Ravid, because we have okay, so here, and again, like, this is the very confusing part about all this. And it drives me mad. It drives me crazy because it's very inconsistent. So here's Barak Ravid's, which looks like it posted about 3:00 Eastern time, something like that yesterday. It was being reported at like 1:00 Eastern time online. And then Barak Ravid goes and he finally writes about it on Axios. But when he writes about it on Axios, he buries the headline. He doesn't give out that little tidbit. He tells it to Channel 12 in Hebrew, and then he goes and he writes about it in English on the Axios, but he doesn't give that part of the headline here is "Behind the Scenes, How Israel and Iran Nearly Pulled Trump Back to War." And it's like, okay, well, that's, really bearing the headline there, because that's not the headline. The headline is Trump threatened to abandon Netanyahu in Israel. So that's the strange part here. There's all these different people, I think, involved in this who have different agendas, and they have different incentive structures. It's not like it's one team of people and they're all working together to whatever, psyop the enemy. I think Barak Ravid is working from his own incentives. He's working from his own agenda, right? And Trump has his own agenda, and people in the Trump administration, for that matter, have their own agenda. A lot of that overlaps with what Trump wants to do, but I think we've also seen some people who are not being fully honest with what they're about in the Trump administration. So, a lot of cloak and dagger bullshit. It's politics, but this element of it is a little maddening. So if we're looking at this, let's just we'll read through this entire thing. And then I'll pull up a Jerusalem Post article, which did cite the Hebrew version in Channel 12, and you'll see what I'm talking about. This stuff is maddening to cover. Okay, so again, the headline, "Behind the Scenes, How Israel and Iran Nearly Pulled Trump Back to War." The past 24 hours underscored the risk of the U.S. once again becoming ensnared in major combat operations in the Middle East, despite President Trump clearly wanting out. On Monday, Trump nudged Israel and Iran back from the brink, but it's unclear for how long. Why it matters: 100 days into the conflict, Trump still has not secured an elusive deal to end the war and spent the last 24 hours scrambling to avoid its full-scale resumption. Trump found himself in a dilemma. On the one hand, he understood it would be nearly impossible for his key ally Benjamin Netanyahu to let an Iranian missile attack go unanswered. On the other hand, he was concerned the tit-for-tat would lead to all-out war. Trump told Axios in a phone interview that he warned the Israeli prime minister if he went back to war with Iran, he might find himself fighting alone. So see, like, that's how it's reported by Barak Ravid. Instead of giving the direct quote, which he gives to Channel 12, he just gives that kind of vague platitude almost, right? He might find himself fighting alone. So driving the news, the escalation, like that right there is the headline, Ravid, just to give you some advice. That's the headline. The headline is not, Iran and Israel sucking Trump back into war. The headline is Trump threatens Netanyahu to walk away, that he's going to walk away and let Israel fight by itself. That is a groundbreaking, earth-shattering headline. It's something that I've been speculating for a long time was the end game, was the actual strategy Trump was playing here, that he was actually waging war against Israel and using Iran as his proxy, whether that's witting or unwittingly. And the moment we would know that was the case, I said was we would see Israel fighting Iran by itself with Trump walking away, making peace, whatever, or at least on a track to make peace, which is where we are right now. All right, so driving the news, the escalation started on Sunday morning when Israel struck a Hezbollah target in Beirut. An Israeli source said the Israel Defense Forces notified CENTCOM ahead of the strike in Beirut, but not the White House. I want to read that again. An Israeli source, so there's a source in Israel, said the Israel Defense Forces, IDF, notified CENTCOM ahead of the strike in Beirut, but not the White House. So they called up CENTCOM, the U.S. military, and they said, hey, we're going to do this. We're going to attack Beirut, but we're not going to tell the White House. This follows a pattern because they did the same thing. I believe they did the same thing last year when they attacked Iran. I have to go double check that, but I'm pretty sure when they attacked Iran, it was either when they first attacked Iran and started the 12-day war, or maybe it was after Trump did Operation Midnight Hammer, and then Israel was like, we're going to keep attacking. But this is a pattern they follow. They don't tell the White House what they're doing. They tell the military what they're doing to kind of cover their bases. The reason they tell the military, by the way, is because they want the military on standby, ready to protect them when Iran comes back swinging. They're not telling the White House, though, because they don't want Trump. They know that CENTCOM, they know that the Pentagon is going to protect them, because if they don't, it would be without the president's express orders. That would be a major political scandal for us to just stand by and the military to stand by and just let Israel get the shit kicked out of it by Iran. That would be a major scandal. So they know that if missiles are flying towards Israel, the U.S. military is going to step in and help them, unless they've been told otherwise by the commander in chief. I think that's part of the reason why they've cut the White House out of the line of communication. So it says a U.S. official said Trump, who pulled the brakes on a similar planned Israeli attack during a tense call days earlier, was unhappy about the strike. Iran then launched missiles toward Israel, as it had vowed to do if Israel struck the Lebanese capital. Some in the IDF had believed that it was an empty threat. From that point, things escalated quickly. And so again, we're backing up to Sunday, okay? So Sunday, Trump said last week, don't attack Beirut. Don't do it. Stand down, Netanyahu. The only reason you're not in prison is because of me. The world hates you because of the way you're behaving. The world hates Israel because of the way you're behaving. I'm trying to negotiate with Iran. Back down off of Hezbollah. Stop attacking Hezbollah and Beirut. Do not attack Beirut. I know you're about to attack Beirut. Don't do it. And Netanyahu says, okay, I'll give you a few days to figure it out. And then Sunday, they decide, all right, we're going to go ahead and attack. We're not going to tell Trump. We're going to tell the U.S. military, though. So CENTCOM is there to protect us, because Iran said, if you strike Beirut, we're going to come for you. Let's see. An Israeli source, I'm sorry, Iran then launched missiles toward Israel, as it had vowed to do if Israel struck the Lebanese capital. Yeah, some in the IDF believed that it was an empty threat. From that point, things escalated quickly. Behind the scenes, Trump called Netanyahu on Sunday evening and asked him not to retaliate, a U.S. official said. Trump argued that either he would get a deal with Iran in a few days that would make the strikes unnecessary, or he wouldn't, in which case he might lead the strikes on Iran, an Israeli source briefed on the call said. 2 U.S. officials and a third Israeli source said the call was much calmer than the ones a few days earlier when Trump called Netanyahu effing crazy. One U.S. official described the call as polite, while a second U.S. official noted that nobody shouted. So this is, we're not shouting at Netanyahu like we did last week. We're just saying, hey man, don't retaliate, don't retaliate, don't retaliate. On the other side, the Israeli source said Netanyahu argued that not responding to the Iranian attack would be bad for Israel, bad for the U.S., and bad for the deal Trump was trying to negotiate. No, it's just going to be bad for Netanyahu because optically it makes him look weak. If he stands by and he lets Iran attack Israel without responding, he looks like a weakling. And Trump gets that. I think everybody gets that. So yeah, it's like no matter what you say to Netanyahu, he's going to respond because he can't afford not to. Let's see. His argument was, this Netanyahu, was that inaction would send the message that Iran has the upper hand and can deter the U.S. and Israel from taking military action. Between the lines, the call ended without a clear decision from Netanyahu. Some U.S. officials who were on the call felt the president had managed to buy more time. Netanyahu, on the other hand, felt that while Trump was opposed to retaliatory strikes, it was not a firm don't, the Israeli source said. Quote, there is no way Bibi could have interpreted what the president told him as an agreement. He was expressly told the president didn't support it, but he does what he does, a U.S. official said. After the meeting with his security chief and IDF commanders, Netanyahu informed the White House that he decided to proceed with the strikes. Trump claimed in the interview that Israel, quote, gave us very late notice about Sunday's strikes. Quote, they were already on their way, but eventually I had the Israeli strike limited, Trump said. An Israeli official confirmed that Netanyahu and other Israeli officials spoke to Secretary of State Marco Rubio on Sunday night to reach an understanding over the targets that would be attacked. And then it says, zoom in. Israel struck a key component in the biggest petrochemical facility in Iran and other targets in Tehran. That led Iran to launch a new barrage of missiles, this time toward Tel Aviv. 2 more rounds of strikes and counterstrikes took place on Monday morning, bringing the situation perilously close to all-out war. While the U.S. military didn't participate in the Israeli attacks, it did help the IDF intercept incoming Iranian missiles, 2 U.S. defense officials said. What he's saying, so Trump told Axios he got calls from 5 different countries in the region asking him to press Netanyahu to stop. Quote, these countries were very concerned. They love the deal that we have been negotiating, Trump said. Trump also claimed, now if I'm going to guess, let me guess who these countries are. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Pakistan, Egypt, Turkey. That would be my guess for the 5 countries. It could be Jordan instead of Egypt, but the 4 are definitely going to be Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Pakistan, Turkey. Those 4 without question. The 5th one, maybe it's Egypt, maybe it's Jordan. My guess is it's probably Egypt. Egypt is probably the one who picked up the phone and called. So 5 countries, that my guess, those are the 5 countries that called. Trump also claimed his administration received calls from the Iranians on Monday morning, stating a willingness to stop shooting if Israel did the same. Quote, they called us and said that they are not doing any more attacks and asked us to tell Israel not to do any more attacks, Trump said. Friction point. Israel was preparing for the biggest wave of strikes on Iran since April, with dozens of sensitive targets to be attacked on Monday, according to 2 Israeli officials. Trump called Netanyahu and asked him to stop the strikes. Quote, I said, Bibi, you better be careful, or you will be on your own very soon, Trump told Axios. So there's the quote. It's buried all the way down here towards the end of the article. That's the quote, though, that's leading in Hebrew media. That's the quote. Bibi, you better be careful or you will be on your own very soon. RT, Russia Today, they're reporting that's the quote. That's the headline. But it's interesting that Axios is not reporting that as the headline. Axios is bearing the lead. And this is a pattern that we've seen happen with American media where they downplay, Western media, they downplay the rift between Trump and Netanyahu. They don't even report, like back in 2021, they didn't even report the interview that Trump gave to Barak Ravid, where he said F Netanyahu. He had some very choice words for Netanyahu. And that went completely unreported in American media. And because of that, the American people remained uninformed about Trump's relationship with Netanyahu. You know, only if you were looking for it online in certain circles on like social media did you see this reporting. And then Barak Ravid went and wrote an entire book. He wrote an entire book based on that one interview. And that book you can find pinned to the top of his X account. I'll pull it up right here. Trump's piece. So that entire book, he wrote, I guess he wrote it in 2022, 2020. I think he published it either in 2022 or 2023. It was based on an interview he did in December of 2021. And then here he's posted in May of 2023, I think this is the audio book. No, I'm sorry. This is for the original book. So May of 2023 is when he published this book.
I also like loyalty. I haven't spoken to him.
So here, I'll play this. This is the clip that he attaches to Trump's to like the book that he's selling. And just to be clear of the, like, what's this image on the front? It's a piece of bologna with the mouth, with like a hole in the middle, looks like a mouth, looks like Trump's head, and then a banana peel has Trump's hair. So read into whatever that means, but banana and bologna, that's what and the book's called Trump's Peace, the Abraham Accords, and the Reshaping of the Middle East.
Nobody did more for Bibi, and I liked Bibi. I still like Bibi, but I also like loyalty. I haven't spoken to him since, right? I didn't talk to him. Fuck him. Okay, go ahead. What else?
Yeah, so again,
nobody did
largely unreported in the American media. Just just went totally undiscussed. Let's get back to the article. An Israeli source said there were disagreements on the call, but it ended with Netanyahu agreeing to stand down if the Iranians didn't attack. After the call, Netanyahu told his senior military commanders to cancel the strikes. What to watch? So let's just recap what the timeline of what we're talking about. So last week, this is last weekend, not this past weekend, but the weekend before. So 9 days ago, 10 days ago, there was a lot of discussion, a lot of speculation that Israel was about to do this big assault on Beirut and basically restart the war with Hezbollah, which would effectively restart the war with Iran. I believe Iran and Israel had not exchanged missiles since April, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I believe that's correct. That they've been in the formal ceasefire since April, with some violations happening here and there, and everyone being like, "Yeah, whatever, it's a violation," but it's not the end of the ceasefire. So then Trump gets on the phone with Netanyahu. This is, I think, last Monday, and says, Trump is teasing that there's this big deal coming with Iran. He's like, "I got a big deal in the works. It's about to happen. We're very close to a deal. Iran wants to make a deal." And he gets on the phone with Netanyahu and he's like, "Don't do it." He's like, "Don't attack Beirut." And because they had, all of a sudden, there's this, the IDF starts moving north in Lebanon toward Beirut. It's very clear that they're going after Beirut. And so Trump then picks up the phone and he calls Netanyahu and he's like, "Don't do it. Do not go to Beirut. Do not attack Beirut. That's the capital of Lebanon. Do not attack Beirut." And that's when he says, he's swearing at Netanyahu, he's cussing him out, goes on, does a television interview the next day with Miranda Devine, confirms everything he said that was reported by Barak Ravid. "Yeah, I did say that was Tuesday morning. Yeah, I did say that. That is what happened. We're working on a deal. We're trying to get this deal done." He then holds a press conference in the afternoon in the Oval Office, a press gaggle, whatever you want to call it. And Peter Doocy asks him about meeting with the Ayatollah, and that's when Trump said the I guess you would call them kind words about the Ayatollah. He's like, "Yeah, well, the Ayatollah actually is very respected in some circles. I would be honored to meet him. I would be respectful. Yeah, we might actually if it means getting a deal, yeah, I'd go meet him to make the deal. Yeah, sure." Again, huge divergence from where he had been for years on the Ayatollah. Okay. So then Netanyahu agrees to not strike Beirut after he takes Castle Beaumont, the Beaumont Castle, right, which is an old Crusader castle, just southeast of Beirut, just southeast of I think it's Nabatea, I think is how you say it. That's a big Hezbollah stronghold. And Netanyahu's like, "All right, I'm going to hold off on hitting Beirut, but you got a couple days to figure this out." A few days later, this is last week, a few days later, Sunday, he strikes Beirut. He doesn't tell Trump. He tells CENTCOM, doesn't tell Trump. Trump then picks up the phone and is, Iran then responds and attacks Israel in response to hitting Beirut, which they said they would do. We're going to attack Beirut. We're going to attack Israel if Israel attacks Beirut. So they do that. There is an interview, actually. Let me pull up this one. Let me see if I can pull this one up. I think it's, so here's the Jerusalem Post article. If this is the one I'm thinking of. Might be the Financial Times article. It is the Financial Times article, I believe. Yeah, here it is. So again, this is on Sunday, right? Yeah, Sunday, June 7th. So Trump does an interview with the Financial Times. He tells the Financial Times that Netanyahu won't have any choice but to accept an Iran deal. And he's like, I call the shots. I call all the shots. He doesn't call the shots. Talking about Bibi. He is disrespecting Bibi and insulting him basically publicly. He's attacking his ego. And he says, we'll see how it ends up, but there were attacks that did not kick at all. He added that Sunday's Iranian missile attack on Israel will not have any impact on the deal, according to the FT. So I don't even think he bothers calling Netanyahu, because Netanyahu attacks Beirut, Iran attacks Israel, all right? And then at that point, Trump picks up the phone and calls Netanyahu. So the quote here is, it's one of those things that's been going on for 3,000 years or 47 years, depending on how you count, Trump added. On Sunday, Trump asked Netanyahu to avoid striking Iran in retaliation for the recent Iranian missile attack on Israel. In 12 News reported, Trump further told Khan News, that gets KAN News, that Israel has responded enough, no need for more. So later on Sunday, Trump told Axios, this is the phone call with Barak Ravid, that the U.S. is very close to a final deal with Iran. Quote, I don't want it to blow up because of what is happening now, said Trump. Trump added that the Iran strikes didn't hurt anybody, saying that he hopes Israel does not retaliate. Quote, if Netanyahu strikes them back, it's just going to keep going like the last 47 years or the last 3,000 years, Trump said. Earlier on Sunday, Trump urged Iran to get back to the negotiating table. Quote, what I would suggest to Iran, you've shot your missiles, that's enough. Get back to the table and make a deal, Trump told Fox News. He also told Fox that he was unaware of the strikes on Lebanon, contrary to early reports, and that he was angry about them. So he tells Fox News on Sunday, I didn't know about these attacks. That pisses me off. And again, we're hearing from the Israeli side, via Barak Ravid, that Trump's telling the truth. The Israelis didn't tell him about their intention to strike Beirut. They told CENTCOM, didn't tell the White House. So then Trump finds out, I assume, from CENTCOM, from the military, and he's angry. So then he sits back, he lets Iran attack Israel, and then he says Trump reiterated to Financial Times on Sunday that Sunday's attack will not affect his decision making on an Iran deal. Quote, the deal may make it on its own merit or not, but this will not have any effect on it, he said, talking about Iran attacking Israel. Trump added that he would consider a ground raid on Iran if negotiations fails. Quote, it means two things, Trump said. Number one, it would mean that possibly we go in and take care of the rest of the place that we didn't take care of militarily, or it would just mean that we would keep the blockade on Iran because the blockade has been probably more powerful than any attack that was ever made on that country. So again, the big development here is Trump being indifferent to the fact that Iran has fired missiles at Israel and kind of like shrugging his shoulders and being like, yeah, like it doesn't matter. Like that, the fact that Iran has attacked Israel doesn't mean anything to me. We're going to continue to negotiate peace. So he's already showing you an indifference toward aggression towards Israel, which is a big deviation from where we were before, where anytime that basically Iran attacked Israel, everyone made a huge deal out about it. I mean, Trump, in my opinion, didn't respond every single time that happened publicly. But Lindsey Graham certainly did. Ted Cruz certainly did. Mark Levin certainly did. Netanyahu certainly did. They would all milk that stuff. And so now Trump is openly telling you, yeah, I don't really care that Iran attacked Israel. Like, we're still going to negotiate. So again, this is all signal. This is like a change in tone, a change in attitude. So now let's go back to this Jerusalem Post article. Says Trump told Channel 5 that, so I mean, I'm sorry, Trump told Channel 12. Now, again, that's Barak Ravid. This is where it gets confusing. Like, you got to run all this down. So when he says Trump also told Channel 12, it's the same thing as them saying Trump also told Axios. Axios Channel 12 is all Barak Ravid. So Trump also told Channel 12 that, and now the reason that Jerusalem Post is reporting it as Channel 12 is because they're hearing it in Hebrew on television in Israel from Channel 12, from Barak Ravid. So Trump also told Channel 12 that 5 countries from the region, which are also involved in mediation efforts between the U.S. and Iran, asked him to pressure Netanyahu to stop the attacks and move forward with peace. Again, I think it's Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Turkey, Egypt. Quote, this morning, the Iranians approached us and said they would no longer carry out an attack on Israel, Trump said to Channel 12. They asked us to tell Israel to stop attacking. I called Bibi and made him stop. So this is Trump telling the Israeli press, the Israeli people, what he's doing. He's like, look, these people want to make peace with you. I had to call your leader, Netanyahu, and tell him to stop. You know, we'll see if he actually does stop. But these people want to stop firing missiles at y'all. And I'm sure you, the Israeli people, want missiles to stop flying in to your cities. So I'm trying to make that happen. It says the U.S. president emphasized in his conversation with Channel 12 that he is still open to a deal and that he believes Iran is also interested in coming to an agreement with the U.S. Netanyahu says he won't allow for Iran Hezbollah to establish a new security paradigm for Israel. Earlier on Monday evening, Netanyahu released a pre-recorded press statement saying that he would not allow Israel's enemies to dictate the state's security paradigm. Quote, Israel has the full right to defend itself, and it will use that right as much as needed, the prime minister said, adding, quote, I say this to you as I say it with respect and appreciation for my friend, President Trump. Netanyahu, like, that's him basically saying, yeah, Trump can have his opinion, but I'm the leader of Israel, and we're going to do whatever is best for Israel. So sorry, not sorry, but again, you're watching the breakup in real time. This is the breakup, okay? That it's slow and it's grueling. It's not like a clean break, but this is the breakup between Trump and Netanyahu publicly, which represents the breakup between the U.S. and Israel, in my opinion, as far as a military quote-unquote alliance, partnership, whatever, where no matter what, we back Israel and our military is going to stick its neck out and protect them no matter what. I think we're watching that end right here in real time. Netanyahu also indicated that he was in contact with U.S. President Donald Trump. I told Trump, this is the quote, together we will bring safety to the north, referring to northern Israel where Hezbollah has been attacking them in response to the IDF going deeper into Lebanon and attacking Beirut. Says Netanyahu won't have any choice but to accept the deal. Trump tells the Financial Times. We already covered that. We already covered what that was about. That was Trump. Trump going to the British press, going to the paper of record. This is what Steve Bannon describes, the Financial Times of London. He describes as the paper of record for the Davos crowd, for the World Economic Forum people, for the globalists. This is their paper. And so he goes to them and he says, I call the shots. I call all the shots. He, referring to Netanyahu, doesn't call the shots. The deal may make it on its own merit or not, but this will not have any effect on it, referring to Israel taking missiles from Iran. So I think let's go back to the original article. Now Barak Ravid is saying what to watch for moving forward. During the interview, this is from yesterday, remember, during the interview, Trump claimed once again that Iran wants a deal and one could be signed soon, a claim he's made repeatedly during 2 months of ceasefire. Quote, it is going to stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon and stop enrichment. It is a phenomenal deal. We are getting everything we wanted, Trump claimed. Iran's parliamentary speaker and chief negotiator, Mohammad Bagir Galibaf, said Trump's recent claims about the draft memorandum of understanding contradicted what had been agreed upon, adding, quote, we have no trust in the other side. Galibaf also claimed Iran had managed to create new ground rules in Lebanon through diplomatic and military pressure. He said Iran's goal was to end the war, not to normalize relations with America. So again, Their goal is to get the IDF to stop invading, to stop moving deeper into Lebanon, and to stop capturing territory in the Middle East. That's their goal. Their goal is not to become friends with Donald Trump. That's what they're saying. Their goal is to shut down the Greater Israel Project and to stop the empire building, the invasion of Syria, the invasion of Lebanon, the invasion of Gaza, soon to be the invasion of the West. Well, the West Bank has already been invaded. It was invaded in 1967, and the military never left. The IDF's been there ever since. So technically, they've already invaded the West Bank, but the annexation of the West Bank, that's their goal. They're telling you straight up, that's our goal. Our goal is not to become friends with the West, with Trump. Our goal is to shut down the military ambition of Bibi Netanyahu and his religious zealots in his security cabinet. All right, so the bottom line, U.S. and Israeli sources say the events of the last 24 hours are further proof that the strategic interests of the U.S. and Israel and the political interests of Trump and Netanyahu are diverging every day. I'm going to read that one more time. U.S. and Israeli sources say the events of the last 24 hours are further proof that the strategic interests of the U.S. and Israel and the political interests of Trump and Netanyahu are diverging every day. Quote, Bibi needs the war to continue to stay politically alive in Israel, and Trump needs the war to end to stay politically alive in the U.S., a U.S. official said. And there you have it. This is 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, whenever it was, I think it was about 2 years ago. I think I started writing for the news brief in March of 2024. I started getting into Israeli domestic politics, which I didn't really know anything about before that, and writing about it in the news brief. And I'm sure it seemed strange. I mean, it's like, why am I spending so much time on this? And even I didn't really understand why I was. I just wanted to understand what's happening on the ground in Israel, what's happening to Netanyahu. And upon doing that, I determined that there were paradigms in that situation that were motivating Netanyahu to do certain things. And that's where we are right now, where if Netanyahu wants to stay politically alive in Israel, in Israeli politics, he has to continue the war. We determined that a long time ago because of his decision to bring these psychopaths into his security cabinet, and his decision doing so further alienating the centrists, right? Who are also Zionists, who also, many of them also do want Greater Israel in some capacity. They certainly want Palestine. They may not want Lebanon or Syria. I think opinions vary on that, but most of them seem to want Palestine. They certainly want a war with Iran. They certainly want Saudi Arabia to never get nuclear technology in terms of like an energy program. They certainly want Israel to be a dominant superpower in the region where everyone else lives under their thumb. Okay. But this is where we are right now. And now I would argue that Trump, like when this official says Trump needs the war to end to stay politically active in the U.S., there's some truth to that. I mean, the longer the war goes on, I do think that, Trump is taking reputational damage to some extent. But Trump can outlast everybody else. It's really the Republican Party that's taking the reputational damage. They're the ones who are taking the flack, not Trump. Trump can survive all of that, right? As long as everything works out the way that I think it's going to work out and the way many of you probably think it's going to work out. A golden age, world peace, all those things. Again, we don't really care, like as American citizens, we don't really care what the government of Iran looks like, right? I mean, obviously we don't want Iran to present a threat to the United States, but a lot of people would argue that Iran has never presented a threat to the United States. They have presented the threat to Israel. Some would argue that a threat to Israel is a threat to the United States and that, our interests are totally overlapped. But a lot of us, myself included, would say that's not the case at all. Israel is Israel. The U.S. is the U.S. Israel can fight its own battles. And frankly, if Israel made peace with all of its neighbors, it probably would find itself facing a lot less hostility from places like Iran. So, these dynamics are all overlapping. This is all about incentive structure, all about what are the agenda of the individual players involved. And because individual agendas are all in conflict, everybody has a different outcome that they want. Netanyahu needs a war with Iran, right? Other elements of the Israeli political spectrum want regime change in Iran. The elements in the U.S. government and the Republican Party want regime change in Iran. They want a war with Iran. Others in the Republican Party want the war shut down because they recognize that as long as the war in Iran is happening, they have to answer those questions on the campaign trail. And guess what? We're starting campaign season right now because it's an election year. So the elections, as I was saying in the Badlands private chat yesterday, or the other day, I think it was yesterday when we were talking about this, elections are fake. Yeah, they probably are. Like, or fraudulent, or however, whatever you want to say. They're probably fraudulent in America. They're probably fraudulent in Israel. Who knows? But that is secondary to the fact that because we are in campaign season, all the politicians on all sides in all countries, the U.S. and Israel, their priority right now is standing out in the crowd, right? And making themselves a known entity and carving out, right, a brand and a reputation as being a leader and being strong and confident. And that's going to mean taking shots at the incumbent, taking shots at Netanyahu. Okay, so what are the opportunities to take shots at Netanyahu? Well, they're right here in front of you. He looks weak. Trump's telling him what to do. He won't finish the job in Iran. He won't finish the job with Hezbollah. Like, that's going to be the attack vector. And then you look at the American political situation. What's the attack vector between the Republican Party and the Democrat Party? A uniparty system, right? But there's still a Hegelian dialectic there. There's still a paradigm that they operate within. What are the opportunities for the Democrats who really have had their brand destroyed? They don't really have a lot of things that they can run on. The one thing that they really can attack Trump for is ostensibly what's happening in Iran, right? Like, as Trump said, we're not going to have any more wars. You know, Joe Biden got into office and now the world's in chaos because Joe Biden's weak. If I had been president during that whole time, none of this would have happened. That's what Trump ran on. So they're going to attack him for that. That means attacking Israel. That means attacking the Republican connection and the Republican support for Israel, which means a lot of these Republicans don't want this conflict to continue. So they're going to be lobbying for it to end. They're like, dude, throw us a bone here in the conflict so that we don't have to answer tough questions on the campaign trail. So you can make the argument, if Trump views these people as enemies, like these Republicans, you can make the argument that Trump wants this to continue. He wants the war to continue because then the Republicans are going to get the screws turned on them. And they're going to have to be answering hard questions, not only from the Democrats, but also from their own voters, because a lot of Republican voters don't want this either. They don't want a war with Iran. They don't want a war in the Middle East. They want all this to be shut down. And optically, it looks like we have the ability to shut it down if we just use the leverage we have against Israel. But again, I will go back to all my analysis from before that Trump tried that the first term. Trump tried to ask nicely. Trump asked Netanyahu very nicely, can you shut down this like settler movement? Can you like stop building new settlements in the West Bank for a little bit? I'm going to try to negotiate a deal. And Netanyahu said, no, we're going to keep going. Like, this is what we're going to do. So Trump's like, okay, fine. You want to do that? Then I'm going to make the entire political discussion about what you're doing and really turn up the magnification so that the entire American zeitgeist is hyper focused on that, which is also going to cause a lot of problems for your friends in the Republican Party who support you. So yeah, like they say that Trump wants the war to end to stay politically alive in the U.S. The truth is the Republican Party wants the war to end to stay politically alive in the U.S. I think Trump is going to use that dynamic to destroy the Republican Party, which is what's happening right now. Okay, so with that said, let's look at Mark Levin, because Mark Levin, as I've said, I think he's Mossad. I think he's I call him Mossad media. He's kind of the tastemaker. He kind of sets the narrative, and then everyone else kind of falls in behind him, right? Remember, this guy was the deputy attorney general under Reagan, which was one of the most deep state administrations there is. I mean, Ronald Reagan's administration was extremely deep state. It was like all CIA people. It was all, I would say, Mossad people. It was all Zionists. It was all neocons. I mean, George Bush, the godfather of the deep state, was his vice president. So Mark Levin, I think, I think the reason that Mark Levin, to Tucker Carlson's point, where Tucker says, nobody likes Levin, nobody watches his show. Why does he have a primetime show on Sunday? Well, number one, he has a primetime show on the weekend because that's when nobody watches television. If he was actually getting ratings, he would have a primetime show, Monday through Friday, or at least one day of the week. They put him on Sunday because nobody watches his show. Why does he have the show? Well, he has the show because I think he's a Mossad asset and they need him to have a platform. So the platform is Fox News. So I want to play this video from his show on Sunday, and you'll see where we stand right now with Mark Levin, because Mark Levin is absolutely attacking. Like he's going after Trump now too. And let's see. Let me pull up this. I'll pull up this post first. This was let me pull up this post from Levin. Okay, so here's his X feed. And this was the signal. This was from Sunday. So Sunday he started to freak out. And remember, I think it was last week, if I'm not mistaken, it was last weekend. Might have been the weekend before. I got to go check. Where Trump said, everybody should watch Mark Levin's show tonight. I think it was last week. He was like, everyone should watch Mark Levin's show tonight. It's going to be great. And Levin had on the former ambassador to Israel, who came on and talked about how important it is for no matter what happens for Israel to stay the course and continue to fight Iran and Hezbollah. And Trump wanted everybody to see that. He wanted everybody to see that. Okay, so here is... God, this guy tweets as much as like a teenage girl. Gotta go all the way to June 7th. Just bear with me here. This is worth it. Okay, so he says here, calling us all slugs. Here it is. This is the one I'm looking for. Why are we all turning on Israel and Netanyahu tonight? Wow. This is at 7:13 p.m. I'm pretty sure his show comes on at 8 o'clock. So this is like 45 minutes before his show. This is when the story breaks about Trump, kind of sticking it to Netanyahu, right? So when he says, why are we turning on Israel and Netanyahu tonight? Wow. He's not referring to MAGA. He's not referring to, the online influencers. Those people turned on Netanyahu and Israel a long time ago. He's talking about Trump when he says this. He's specifically saying, why are we turning on Netanyahu and Israel tonight? Wow. He's referring to Trump. He's not referring to the rest of us, because that happened a long time ago. So then look at where he goes from there. So then he posts, he makes a few posts. He posts this clip of Rubio.
If you fire at a U.S. Navy ship, what are we supposed to do? Say, oh, there's a ceasefire. We're not going to shoot down your drone. That's a stupid question. That's a stupid position to take. Of course we fired back at them. They were shooting at us. That's what I would expect to do. Only stupid countries don't shoot back when you're shot at. And we're not a stupid country. Because
again, remember what Trump said is he asked Netanyahu not to attack Iran. That's what Levin's responding to here. He's like, wait a minute. We attacked Beirut. We, being Israel, attacked Beirut. Iran attacked Israel. Why wouldn't we then attack Iran? So that's what he's responding to. He's like, wait a minute. This isn't right. So then he posts, victory is the best politics. I'm just going to run through a few of his posts here. This one's interesting. He's quote posting comic Dave Smith. He was like, I think he's like a left-wing comedian, but he's become like anti-Israel. I'm pretty sure he's Jewish. Mark Levin says, Iran's boy chimes in, or is it Putin's boy? because again, Mark Levin has always been anti-Putin. He's always been anti-Russia, and he's been very, very subversive and attacking Trump indirectly whenever Trump and Putin are speaking or trying to make a deal. And so then Mark Levin reposts this other woman, Rebecca Heinrichs. And by the way, at this moment, this is Sunday evening, all of the Israeli Mossad media people, like all of them are losing their mind. They're all like monkeys at the zoo throwing poo at the wall. I mean, they are just chimping out completely because optically it looks like Trump is turning on Netanyahu. And so this woman posts, Trump had his greatest successes when he was working hand in glove with Israel and not pressuring it to absorb Hezbollah attacks. Telling Israel not to defend itself will not result in the peace he wants. She's quote posting Amit Segal. Amit Segal is he is that reporter who is very close with Netanyahu, who was accused of being the leaker by I think it was Max Blumenthal accused him of being the leaker that was leaking sensitive intelligence, right? That I guess the IDF and the U.S. military were sharing. Says Trump to Barak Ravid, I'll call Netanyahu right now and tell him not to attack Iran. That's what Trump told Barak Ravid, and then Barak Ravid turned around and told Channel 12 that, I believe, and said, I'm going to call Netanyahu right now, and I'm going to tell him not to attack Iran. And then Mark Levin reposts this woman, Erin Molin. I mean, I'm sure this woman is probably part of the Hasbara network. Let's listen to her.
Okay, so some quick airport thoughts before I get on the flight. Repeat after me. Take Trump seriously, not literally. In his 1000th interview since the Islamic regime of Iran launched missiles towards Israel, he said, it's my call. I call the shots. I call the shots. I'd make one observation in that everyone screams blue murder when there's even the insinuation that Israel might be controlling American foreign policy, which they're not, by the way. That should be very, very obvious to even blind Freddie. They're not. But when we have the US president very publicly saying, I will tell Bibi what to do and what not to do, I call the shots, not him, when it's Israel's sovereign territory that is under attack, there's no outcry. Everyone is completely okay with it. Bizarre, huh? Is this a consequence of showing that there is daylight between the US and Israel? This is clearly a test. Plenty in Israel heaping pressure on Bibi to strike back. Again, when you don't finish the job, this is a position you find yourself in, and there ain't going to be any winners. Well, there will be an eventual winner, and it will be Western civilization, but there's a quicker way and there's a slower, more painful, more chaotic way. And we seem to be going with the latter right now.
Okay, so like you can see the knives are out. You can see that the knives are out for Trump and the outrage that Trump would dare tell Israel what to do. They had no problem with the optics of like Iran dictating to, Israel dictating to the United States what to do. But the minute that we start to dictate to Israel what's going to happen, being that we are their protector and we're the only reason they exist as a country, the knives are coming out. This woman, is she Australian? Is she British? I mean, why does she even have an opinion on this? Like, she doesn't seem American at all to me. And if she is, she's a dual citizen. So why is she even talking about America as if it's a we? There is no we here, lady. You're Australian or you're British or whatever. You're not one of us, though. So why don't you put your red coat back on and go live in Tel Aviv? Here is, I just went to her account and I typed in Trump. Look at how she has posted about Trump up until now. Trump destroyed them all, right? And then here's one from April 29th. Yup, Trump did post this. And yup, I'll take this over all the other pretenders every day of the week. Islamic regime of Iran, TikTok. God, you gotta love the TikTok people like Sean Hannity. Amazing people of Iran, hang tight. So these people were like giddy and excited and loving Trump when Trump was doing what they wanted him to do, which was to start a war with Iran and kill as many people as possible. Super excited. The minute that it looks like Trump is not going to, as she said, finish the job, the knives come out and they're ready to just sink the knives into Trump's back. That's where we are right now. And that's, by the way, why Trump had to play it this way. That's why he couldn't just come out on day one and be on day one of term 2 and say, "Oh yeah, like I'm not going to support Israel. Israel can, figure it out. Like, if they die, they die. Go fight Iran on your own." No, he led them down the path. He ginned up the hubris. He inflated their egos. He got them to quadruple their Hasbara, which is their propaganda budget. So they're throwing money at people like this, Aaron Molin, to say nice things about Israel and push their talking points. And now Trump's rug pulling them. And so they have this vast network of influencers that they're paying to, protect them basically online, their reputation. Well, what are those influencers going to do now that Trump has rug pulled them? They're going to turn on Trump. And it's going to be very obvious that they're doing that at the behest of Israel, which is only going to make the situation that much worse for Israel. It's like an Ouroboros. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Okay, so now I want to play. So again, this is like the reason that I got off on this little tangent is because Mark Levin reposted that, like what she just said. She said, and her post, by the way, of that video, she posted says, "U.S. dictating Israeli foreign policy. Where is the outcry? Oh, but of course." Yeah. So, and then Mark Levin, again, he's quote posting somebody who says, "Per Axios, Netanyahu has agreed to Trump's request to hold off on retaliating against Iran's ballistic missile attack, giving Washington more time to reach a diplomatic agreement with Tehran." And Levin saying, Axios wrong again. And he says, lots of slugs online supporting Iran. Don't forget who they are. Let's see. Anyone? Yeah. So anyone who, so this one person says, "Gee, Mark, it's almost like you side with Israel when the two are at odds," talking about when Israel and the United States are at odds, when Netanyahu and Trump are at odds. It's almost like you always side with Israel. And Mark Levin says, "Nice try, imbecile. Keep rooting for Iran." So again, if you don't lockstep agree with every single thing that these people say, you are a Iran supporter, you are an anti-Semite, you are all the names that they like to call people. So now I want to go to the post. And so now he's like reposting Randy Fine. Randy Fine is like, "Israel has every right to respond to rockets, like attack, bombs away." Mark Levin says, yup again. Like, yes, kill as many people as you possibly can. Respond. So now I want to play, this is like a 7-minute clip, so it's kind of long, but this is from his show from Sunday night. So listen to it and judge for yourself. A lot of it's audio, and then there's some video clips he plays.
I don't know why the president of the United States feels the need to keep going to left-wing reporters and talking about confidential conversations he has with the Prime Minister of Israel. And I don't know why he keeps bashing the Prime Minister of Israel, who's trying to protect his country and his own people. Just a few weeks ago, their fighter jets were fighting right alongside ours. The Mossad was working with the CIA. And of course, the Prime Minister was working with the President in what was a spectacular military operation. I know the President is deeply desperate for a deal. The Iranians know he's deeply desperate for a deal. The whole world knows he's deeply desperate for a deal. Got it. But the problem is the state of Israel is in the neighborhood. And when Hezbollah is shooting thousands of missiles into the state of Israel and tens of thousands of drones since the ceasefire 9 weeks ago on April 8th, and Israel's told it can only fight a defensive war, and Israel's told to stay away from Beirut, even though the head of the snake is right outside of Beirut, and even after signing a so-called peace deal with the Lebanese government, which is a government that wants peace with Israel, but has nothing to do with Hezbollah and cannot control Hezbollah. And then when they fight to push Hezbollah back, because they've now had to depopulate the northern part of the country, it's a tiny country. I want you to think of New Jersey, and the top 20, 25% of New Jersey has to be pushed back, hundreds of thousands of people depopulated. And then they're told they can only fight so much to stop it. The hypocrisy of our country that wouldn't put up with it in the treatment of that country is ridiculous. In fact, we don't ask any other country to do that. None. So why the constant beating up of Netanyahu? He wants to defeat the regime in Iran. We do not. We've decided not. We've decided, at least for now, maybe next week it'll change, we're not going to use our military to enforce anything except if they take action against us. So obviously, if you're the Israelis and they're firing weapons into your country and you want to take action, we would do exactly the same thing, would we not? Even more. So Iran's figured this out. So they fired 11 ballistic missiles into Israel. Ballistic missiles.
Okay, I just want to pause it here because this is a longer clip. We're like 2.5 minutes in, almost 3 minutes in. It looks like it's about an 8-minute clip. So he just called Trump desperate. He goes, everyone knows Trump's desperate. He's desperate right now. He's desperate for a deal. I don't think Trump's desperate at all. But Levin is now, the knives are coming out. He's attacking Trump. He's like, Trump's desperate for a deal, so he's going to do whatever he wants. Levin is outraged that the U.S. military is not attacking, helping the IDF attack Hezbollah, attack Iran. He's like, no other country we asked to do this with. Yeah, no other country are we like teamed up with their military and invading the neighbors and like helping that country, take territory from their neighbors. This is a totally unique situation, unlike any other place in the world. And then he sits there and he expresses outrage because Hezbollah has driven all these people in northern Israel south because of their bombing. Well, that's exactly what's happened in Lebanon. That's exactly what's happened in the West Bank. That's exactly what's happened in Gaza. That's exactly what's happened in southern Syria. So he calls us hypocrites. They're the hypocrites. Okay, so let's just continue.
Can blow a city block off the face of the earth, the size of school buses. Each one carries 2,000 pounds. So Israel prepares to fight back, and they get a call telling them they shouldn't. But if they do, to be very limited about it. So they go in and they hammer the hell out of them. And they want to finish the job, but they're pulled back by us. They're told, no, you come back. You want to be alone? You want to be the only ones? We didn't do anything much to support their effort. In fact, there was an announcement from the White House last night saying we had nothing to do with this. Our military's not involved. And I commented, well, that's nothing to be proud of. They were fighting alongside of us when we asked them to join us in our efforts. And of course, Iran sees all this. But Tyrus on Fox on the 5. I've only talked to him once, I think, for a book interview, Mr. Producer. We've had him on. Very nice man. Actually, really.
You got to love Levin here. Levin's like, oh, yeah, the black fella from Fox. I've talked to him one time. Like, let's listen to what he has to say. And obviously, Tyrus and all these other people are all probably on the Hasbara. But, they're all on the Hasbara payroll as well. But listen to this.
Really sharp. And about an hour ago on Fox, the 5, he said this. Cut 21. Go.
Iran they're counting us to be like the America they've had dealt with for decades. They're looking at how Afghanistan, well, maybe when America leaves, they'll leave us tanks and helicopters too. We just have to wait this out. I think in America, it's easy for us to say, oh, this what's going on over there but the people who live in Israel, this is their front yard and their backyard. And they see, and it's hard to hold it against them and their government against them. Like, they can finally end this. Iran's best friend in this whole situation is President Trump, because he's the only one consistently saying, hey, we're going to come to the table, and Iran shoots at a ship. Okay, cool. We'll just blow up the guys who did it, but we're still willing to be at the table. If President Trump said, you know what, Israel and a lot of the Kuwait and a lot of the places that Iran fired at, he said, you know what, you guys handle it, there would be no more Iran. It would be completely, Iran's best friend in this situation is the United States, because they're the only one who can say to Israel right now, it's like, hey, stop firing. And that's a lot to ask a country after, forget just October 7th. Look, forget the national worldwide campaign against them. This type of stuff we've seen here in America and our college campuses all around the world. So I sympathize with Israel's need to want to be safe and free. And for us, we sit on the other side of the ocean going, well, this needs to stop. So Iran, if you have any brains left in, what did you call him again?
The gay Ayatollah.
The gay Ayatollah. Maybe it's time to put on those dance shoes and go out and serenade and call the president and get it done. Because if the president walks away from this, it's not going to be like Afghanistan.
Right.
Israel's coming, and hell's coming with them.
Yeah, it would be a very different end.
Yeah.
And so when the president didn't,
Israel's coming and hell's coming with them. Okay, so again, let's just evaluate the zeitgeist right now. Over the past few months, especially over the past few days, who seems more panicked right now? Iran or Israel? Who seems like they're very worried about what might happen next? Who seems very anxious? Who seems like they can't, like they're on pins and needles, upset about how things are going, upset that we're moving towards a peace deal? Is it Iran or is it Israel? Like when the shackles come off, I mean, Tyra's sitting there saying that Iran better watch out. They better go get a deal because once the the IDF wasn't even trying before, right? The IDF is going to actually go full tilt now. Like, really? I mean, I'm pretty sure, like, you mean back when they were all saying that they were going to kill everybody in Tehran, they were going to kill everybody in the IRGC, they were going to kill the Ayatollah. They weren't going full tilt. That wasn't giving 100%. They weren't actually trying. They were playing softball. I don't think so. I think the other side was actually playing softball. I think Iran was holding back because they knew if they went full tilt, they would draw the ire not only of President Trump, but also of the world, right? Would look at them and say, hey, you took it too far. You're committing war crimes, etc. Yeah, I think that, but again, it's hubris, it's ego. It's also, I think, Hasbara and the propaganda funding. Let's finish this clip. There's about 2 minutes left.
in an interview on television in Israel, maybe an hour or two ago, and it's pretty rough on the prime minister there, who's up for election in October, so it's very unhelpful to him. And they'll be sorry about any of these other candidates who are elected. I can trust you on that one. Trust me on that. And he said, if Israel, basically if they don't do what I tell them to do, they're going to be left alone fighting Iran. They will whip Iran's ass. And they want to destroy that regime. And they will finally give arms to the people in Iran. They won't give a damn what Turkey and Erdogan has to say about it. The lifeline will be whatever deal we come up with, because that deal, after the president leaves, will not be enforceable. It just won't. It just won't. So Axios and this guy, Barak Ravid is an Israeli who worked for two of the worst publications in Israel, couldn't hold his jobs there, goes to Axios, and this is the guy that receives the leaks, I guess, from the Oval Office or people around the president, and who the president talks to all the time to put that information out. And you'll notice that Netanyahu hasn't gone to the press about any of the conversations. Moreover, I'm not aware that.
So again, he's acknowledging that Barak Ravid has a special relationship with Trump. He's acknowledging that Trump talks to this guy on the phone all the time, probably more than any other reporter. And yet he's sitting there being like, this guy's a clown. He's a joke. He's a liberal, like whatever, like all these things. And then he says, Netanyahu doesn't do any of this stuff. So again, it's like he is seeing clearly probably what I think he has suspected for a while and been worried about for a while. But we are a far cry. Remember a few months ago when he was at the White House or whatever that party was they were at, I think it may have been New Year's Eve, and he was throwing his arms around Trump and he was like, he's the first Jewish president. Like, we love this guy. We are a far cry from that. Far cry from that.
Conversations our president has with any other head of state winds up being discussed in the media. I really have not seen it, but I've seen these things before. These efforts, these campaigns to diminish, to reduce. And I don't think Netanyahu is going to be pushed into submission. He can't. The stakes are way too high for exactly the reasons Tyrus said. Tyrus is right. And a lot of you have been calling here saying exactly the same thing. And online, putting aside the bots and the Jew haters and the rest, a lot of people are saying the same thing. This is not helping us.
Yeah. So again, I think the strategy here, and this has been the strategy the whole time, this is what I've long contended, and could be wrong, but more and more it's looking like this is the case. Had Trump just come out day one in January 20th, 2025 and said, you know what? No, we're not. We're pulling it. We're pulling out of the Middle East. We're done. We're not going to back you. You can go do whatever you want. What would have happened at that point? Well, Israel would, like the Israel lobby, the diaspora that represents, is behind Israel, that is worldwide, that is in London, that is in DC, that is in New York, that is in France, that is in Paris, that is in everywhere. They would have mobilized all of their vast resources, significant resources, financial and otherwise, against Trump, right? And then Trump would have been fighting yet another enemy in addition to all the other enemies that he's fighting, right? Instead, Trump cozies up to him. And Trump's like, yeah, we're going to do exactly what you want. Like, we're going to give you everything that you want. And these people are like, oh, this is great. And they're boosting Trump, and they're like, okay, we'll help you. We'll help you achieve, these little smaller agenda items that don't really matter to us. We can afford to sacrifice these things. That's fine. As long as you are giving us what we want, and we can, build greater Israel and do all that. Yeah, let's do this. Then Trump puts them in a position where they've swam halfway across the river, and now Trump's ditching them. They've swam halfway across the river. They've started the war with Iran. This is their one chance to actually fight a full-out war with Iran and establish themselves as a dominant power in the Middle East, a superpower, as they call it. However much territory they end up adding to themselves, they expanded their borders. That's a secondary question. The question is, when this is all over, is Israel going to be the kingmaker, so to speak? Are they going to be the rulers of the Middle East, or are they going to be put into a corner by all of their Muslim neighbors who are going to come together and say, hey, here are the terms, take them or leave them? Who's going to be setting the terms at the end of all this? Is it going to be Israel with maybe the backing of the United States? Or is it going to be the other side, whether that's Iran and the Arabs, whether that's the Arabs, Pakistan, Turkey, plus Iran? Who is it? That's, I think, the question here. And that's what they recognize. Their hubris and their ego has been so inflated that they now think that they can go fight Iran on their own and win. But as Pepe Escobar has said, reporting from Moscow, reporting from places like Beijing, reporting even from Tehran, as he said, anytime you hear the word Iran in geopolitics right now, you have to think it's Iran, Russia, and China together, all three of them at all times. He's like, Iran is not acting alone ever. They're always acting in concert with Russia and in concert with China, because China and Russia are backing them. So you're not just fighting Iran, you're fighting Iran plus Russia plus China, plus anyone else in the global south who supports them, which is pretty much the entire global south, most of it. So that's what Israel is up against right now. And they have not been doing a very good job of winning this with U.S. backing. Now they're going to lose U.S. backing, and they think they can still win. That's the blinding hubris that I think, the wool that Trump's pulled over their eyes and basically stirred them up into a frenzy. And now he's kicking them out the door. So, yeah, with that said, let's take a break. We'll reset. We'll come back, and we will continue down. There's some big stories that are breaking right now that we're going to talk about. Yeah, pause for good.
It's finally here, our second annual mega sale. This sale only comes around once a year, so take advantage of the best offers ever while you can. For example, save 50% on our Giza Dream bed sheets, as low as $29.98. And for the first time ever on TV, My Pillow mattresses and My Pillow mattress toppers, as low as $99.98. And you save 50% on our Lux Pure 6-piece towel sets, regular $69.98. Now only $39.98. And our best-selling standard My Pillows, regular $49.98, on sale for $17.98. Wait on it, mega sale, only $14.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our second annual mega sale. But wait, there's more. To make the mega sale even more special, when you order right now, your order's going to ship absolutely free.
Unexpected health emergencies don't wait, and with SafePulse, you can stay prepared. From trusted medications like amoxicillin, azithromycin, ivermectin, and hydroxychloroquine to the medical emergency kit designed to help support over 30 common illnesses, SafePulse makes it easy to stock up on essential health supplies. At SafePulse, keeping your family prepared has never been easier, and it's all delivered through a simple, streamlined ordering process at prices you can feel good about. Whether you need an emergency kit or you're stocking up on everyday essentials, now's the time to be ready for whatever comes your way. Visit badlandsmedia.tv/meds today and use promo code Badlands to save 20%. That's badlandsmedia.tv/meds, promo code Badlands.
A long, long time ago, a raider went into a dangerous cave. Because he was on an adventure. Or like he smelled like an adventure. But the cave was protected by spiders and lizards. No, it was snakes. Snakes? Why did it have to be snakes? Whatever it was, the raider wasn't scared of it because it was Ghost. The lotion raider. Then he found golden deodorant. That's not deodorant, that's the towel bar. It was soft disclosure. Ghost had exactly 1 second to switch it, or the whole cave explodes! And then the boulders started chasing him. Run, Ghost, run! Oh no, he dropped the soft disclosure. I got it. I understand its power now. That lotion is an important artifact and it belongs in every household. Visit softdisclosure.com and use promo code LotionWaiter for 15% off.
And there's hurt you can cause, time alone cannot heal. Keep your nose on the ground.
All right, welcome back to Geopolitics with Ghost. This is hour 2. Today is June 9th, 2026. We're going to keep going. I see people asking in the chat, what about Lindsey Graham? What has Lindsey Graham been saying lately? Well, Lindsey Graham has actually been very quiet. Here, I'll pull up his X feed, so you can see that. Like I'm going back all the way. Like he posted 37 minutes ago. Talking about his complete and total endorsement from President Trump. I'm going back. I'm at June 5th, which is 4 days ago. Nothing on this situation. So. The reason he's not saying anything is because today the primary in South Carolina is today. I saw General Flynn posted about it earlier, or maybe it was yesterday. And General Flynn said, South Carolina, you have the opportunity to remove this clown from office. Get out there and kick him out of office. So he's not jumping into this fray right now because he's in campaign mode and he's not trying to upset the apple cart. He doesn't want any last minute, he doesn't want to make himself the story right now. Right. So that's why he's not saying anything. That's why he's staying out of all this, which is why Mark Levin, who's not a politician, is a good barometer for this stuff. Okay. So we can, I'll just jump back to Mark Levin's X feed really quick and just point out a few things, because I think I talked about this on Alpha's show on Sunday. I may have talked about it on this show on Friday, but I did bring up the fact that Mark Levin keeps posting arm them, referring to the Iranian people. So here is from yesterday. He says, arm the Iranian people, right? And it says student protests erupt in Iran over education policies, etc. And then there's this post where it's C14 News, which is another news outlet in Israel. It says, now in Washington, the White House denies any U.S. involvement in Israel's strikes on Iran tonight. That's from Sunday night. And then yesterday, Mark Levin quote posted it and said, very unfortunate, nothing to be proud of, but noted by all. And by all, I think he refers to the Mossad media network, their whole network of people. They understand the diaspora sees what Trump's doing, and they recognize that they're being abandoned right now. And then he says again, arm them, which is right. Yeah, so he says, arm them, arm them, arm them. And he says the bold strategy for confronting Iran's ruling regime, target the IRGC, dismantle its military infrastructure, remove the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism, arm the peasants. So he keeps saying, arm them, arm them. He wants to send weapons into Iran and give it to the Kurds or whoever and have them go overthrow the Iranian government. I mean, again, that's the mentality. The question has to be asked, who armed Antifa in the summer of 2020? Who gave them the means, the money, the means, the resources to do all the stuff they were doing that summer when they were taking over cities and basically establishing their dominance? Like, who did that? Well, people like Mark Levin and his ilk, which I think is the diaspora, but also, the Gentiles who collaborate with them, who collude with them, the CIA, etc., CIA plus. This is their mentality. They are all about arming dissident populations and motivating them, paying them to overthrow the government. So they're doing it in the Middle East, and of course, I think they did it in the summer of 2020. Because again, at the time, this is important. The summer of 2020, what was happening? Well, here's what was happening. Trump was forcing the Abraham Accords down Israel's throat. At the same time, and Netanyahu was escalating Israeli settler policies. Like he was throwing funding at the settlers and saying, go build more settlements in the West Bank, to the extent that the Emirati ambassador to the United States, whose name is Youssef Al-Otaiba, he had to write an op-ed that was published across Israeli media for the first time ever, wrote an op-ed to the Israeli people and said, look, we, the Arabs, are ready to make peace with y'all. And we, the Arabs, are ready to move forward as partners with y'all. But you have to stop conquering and taking territory in Palestine. This is unacceptable. If you don't stop this, then you will not get peace with the Arabs. You will not be there will be no peace. We will not become friends. You have to stop this right now. And then Netanyahu, in August, I think it was like August 14th, the night before, there was supposed to be this big phone call among all the parties involved in the Abraham Accords to finalize the deal. Netanyahu called Trump and said, yeah, we're out. Like, we're not doing the Abraham Accords. We have an election coming up and we can't afford it politically, so we're not going to do it. Thanks anyway, but we're out. And Trump, I think that was Ron Dermer said that to one of Trump's aides, and Trump picked up the phone and said, put Netanyahu on, and basically said, your ass better be on the phone tomorrow, and you better be ready to agree or else. Put the fear of God in Netanyahu. And then a month later, September of 2020, that's when they all met at the White House and signed the Abraham Accords. But Trump had to twist Netanyahu's arm to do that. So all that's happening concurrent to the summer of love, right? So, and then of course, 6 weeks later after they signed the Abraham Accords, we get the stolen election from Trump. Like the coup is run against Trump. And then the first person to pick up the phone, not only pick up the phone, but put out a pre-recorded video congratulating Joe Biden on defeating Trump is who? Bibi Netanyahu. So it's really important to understand that at that moment in time, Trump was forcing Israel to do something it didn't want to do, which was make peace with the Arabs. And therefore, you have to think that Israel viewed Trump as a clear and present danger. He had to go. And then guess who undid the Abraham Accords? A lot of the things in the Abraham Accords. Guess who immediately undid the Abraham Accords to a large degree? The Biden administration. That was the first thing they did when they came in. They just undid a lot of that stuff. The agreement stayed in place, but most of the elements of it were negated, right? And then the UAE, of course, made peace with Israel and they started trading and all that. But point is that Trump was forcing something down their throat that they didn't want. And then all of a sudden we get this dissident population, minority population trying to destroy U.S. society. That was Antifa in the summer of love. So you know, there's a lot of consistency here in what we're seeing in their strategy and the way that they approach this stuff. Okay, before we continue, I just wanted to point out that we have at the end of the month, June 25th through 28th, Deadwood, the next Great American Restoration Tour. Join us in Deadwood, South Dakota for the next iteration of GART. You can buy tickets online, badlandsmedia.tv/events. If you can't make it in person, join us online. You can get online tickets. Go pick it up today. I know they've been doing live streams once a week, like private streams for ticket holders. So we started doing those a few weeks ago. There'll be another one on Thursday. They'll be emailed to you. So if you have a ticket, check your email and you can join us in the live stream. But badlandsmedia.tv/events. We'll see y'all there. Okay, so let's move on. So there are a few concurrent stories here that I thought were worth pointing out. There's a major story in Russia right now. There's a major attack that just happened. So we're going to jump right into that. Before we do, though, I wanted to bring up these stories, which was so we have, and unfortunately, Tasnim, which is where these were originally reported, their website's down today. I don't know if that's a coincidence or not, but I'm just going to go ahead and I found them on other alternative websites that aren't being DDoS attacked, I don't think. And this is all connected, I think, to the situation. So the first is this story. The SCO reaffirmed support for Iran. This is from 2 days ago, from Sunday. The SCO, of course, is the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Islam Times Secretary General, or this is from the Islam Times. They're just reporting what was put out by Tasnim, which is, you know, adjacent to Iran state media. It says Secretary General of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO, Nurlan Yermekbayev, expressed solidarity with the Iranian nation and government, saying the organization issued 4 statements in support of Iran during the recent U.S.-Israeli war of aggression. Iranian Interior Minister Iskandar Momini held a meeting with Yermekbayev on the sidelines of the meeting of Interior and Public Security Ministers of SCO member states in Bishkek. During the meeting, Momini thanked the organizers for hosting the gathering and highlighted the strategic importance of the SCO, with member states accounting for nearly 50% of the world's population and possessing vast economic capacities and opportunities. The organization can play a highly effective role in international developments, the Iranian minister added. He noted that given the security issues constitute one of the key objectives of the organization, it is very important for member states to adopt clear positions during critical moments. For his part, Yermekbayev expressed solidarity with the government and people of Iran and noted that the Shanghai Cooperation Organization issued 4 statements in support of Iran during the war. SCO Secretary General also voiced hope that peace will be restored as soon as possible. So remember, we talked about the SCO, I think on Friday last week. We talk about them pretty often. The North-South transport corridor, which is this map, that's the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. That is this map right here. So y'all have seen this map before, right? The red line that goes through Iran and connects Mumbai, India, with Moscow, really St. Petersburg. That's the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And guess where it's based out of, guys? China. Okay. So again, when Pepe Escobar says that when you think of Iran in this moment in time, you got to think of the triumvirate. You got to think of Iran, Russia, and China all working together, because this map right here explains why they all have a vested interest. Politics aside, personal feelings aside, you know, all of that, game theory and all that aside, you know, about their feelings about Israel, their feeling, you know, their desire to assist their friends in the Arab Peninsula, you know, bring peace to the region, you know, altruism, right, of making world peace, all that stuff. Set all that aside and just look at practicality and pragmatism. This red line right here represents the global South's dominance or takeover of global trade, away from what we would describe as the globalists, the European empires of the past 500 years, the City of London, specifically the Suez Canal, the Suez Company in Paris. And again, the red line runs primarily through Iran. So I think overthrowing the regime in Iran is just as much about stopping this as it is anything else, shutting down this program, shutting down the north-south transport corridor as it is anything else. So this is why you got to think of China whenever you think of when you think of Iran. And then of course Russia and Iran have their own security deals and everything in place. Russia's been far more upfront about their interests here. Ben Gavir, this is just a little side story. Itamar Ben Gavir faces potential arrest risk in Europe as Italy joins the probe into the flotilla incident. Italian prosecutors have launched an investigation into far-right Israeli minister Itamar Ben Gavir over the treatment of Italian nationals detained during the interception of an aid flotilla bound for Gaza. So this is connected to that video that he put out where there were all those like arrested people and he was standing over top of them, basically spitting on them. Those were citizens from different countries. Italy, I think, is where they left out of, the aid flotilla, regardless of what the aid flotilla was it put together by, spooks? I mean, who knows? What's her name? Greta was involved in it. The point is that you're seeing escalation here between Europe, the EU and Israel. And so Italy is now probing Ben Gavir and considering that maybe Ben Gavir, because Ben Gavir, national security minister, he's the one who had the police intervene, shut down the flotilla, arrest the people. A lot of those people are claiming that they were mistreated, abused. I think some of them said they were raped. I don't know. When they were under Israeli, when they were in the detention, when they were in custody of Israel. But what makes this interesting is you also have from France today, maybe it may have been from yesterday. France has banned Ben Gavir from their country. And that story is somewhere out there, but I thought I had that headline. But yeah, so France has banned Ben Gavir, or no, I'm sorry, it's Smotrich. It's Smotrich. That's who it is. Yeah, so France bans Smotrich. So we got the two leaders ostensibly of the Israeli government. You have Smotrich and you have Ben Gavir. Ben Gavir is now, both of them have been banned in a number of countries. And Ben Gavir now under investigation in Italy. Smotrich, I believe, is being banned from France. Yeah, so here's France 24. France bans Israeli minister Smotrich and coordinated sanctions push. France Tuesday banned Israel's far-right finance minister Bezalel Smotrich from entering the country as part of coordinated sanctions with other countries over settler violence against Palestinians. Smotrich is the second member of the Israeli government to be forbidden from entering France in recent months after National Security Minister Itamar Ben Gavir was barred on May 23rd for mocking activists detained by Israeli soldiers from a Gaza-bound flotilla carrying aid for Palestinian territory. The United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and Norway already slapped a travel ban on both ministers in June of last year over inciting violence against Palestinians. Other countries have also banned the ministers, including Spain, Slovenia, and most recently Ireland. French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot said his country was banning Smotrich because he actively promotes the annexation of the West Bank, which he openly claims, the creation of new settlements in the West Bank, the recolonization of Gaza, the economic collapse of the Palestinian Authority, and its harmful consequences for the Palestinian population. This is a policy that the overwhelming majority of the international community firmly committed to the two-state solution cannot accept. And And so again, let's read off the list of countries. You're talking about that both of these guys are banned from now. That it is France, Britain, Spain, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, Norway, Ireland, and Slovenia. I mean, that's like half of Europe right there. That's a big part of NATO, I would say, plus Australia. So again, you're talking about the isolation, the ostracizing of Israeli leaders, the isolation of Israel, right? The vilification of Israel around the world. And this is all happening incrementally at a point in time when Israel really can't afford to suffer these kind of reputational harm. Okay, so before I get so there's one more story that I had pulled up from this Islam Times site, and that is, or two more rather. Arakchi, this is from Sunday, stresses the expansion of Iran-Venezuela cooperation. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Arakchi emphasized the need to maintain and strengthen bilateral cooperation with Venezuela. Iran's ambassador to Caracas, Ali Sheghini, met with Foreign Minister Arakchi in Tehran on Saturday to present a report on the latest developments in Venezuela, the situation of Iranian nationals, and the state of bilateral cooperation. During the meeting, the envoy provided the foreign minister with a concise briefing on recent developments in Venezuela, the conditions facing Iranian citizens residing in the country, and the progress of cooperation between Tehran and Caracas. Arakchi, for his part, referred to the history of strategic relations between Tehran and Caracas and stressed the importance of continuing and enhancing bilateral cooperation in various fields of mutual interest. The Iranian foreign minister underscored the need to further strengthen ties between the two countries, highlighting the significance of expanding cooperation across multiple sectors. So this is important and significant because remember, Maduro and Iran were like allies, right? That was one of the criticisms of Maduro by the deep state, by the Republicans, was that he was an ally and a trade partner of the IRGC, of the Iranian regime, right? So not only has that not changed since Maduro was quote unquote kidnapped, taken out of the picture, they are now strengthening and increasing their relationship. Okay. So again, this signals a few things. Number one, the idea that Delcy Rodriguez, the acting interim president, has betrayed her allies and betrayed Maduro and betrayed the mission, I mean, is false. Because if that were the case, Iran and these other people would not be working with her. They would be stonewalling her and saying, "Nope, you betrayed us. You went against what Maduro was all about. We're done with you." No, like they're enhancing the relationship now, right? As is Trump. So both Trump and Iran are enhancing their relationship with Venezuela at the same time. Trump saying that Venezuela is a great ally, Iran saying Venezuela is a great ally. Nothing has changed from a government from the perspective of the government. The regime in Caracas is still the same. So this is all signal that we're basically being told stories about what is and what isn't and what's happened. But the reality is that we still have the same government in Caracas. We still have the same government ostensibly in Iran. They're still continuing to build a relationship between those two countries. One of the sanctions we put on Venezuela was the fact that they were supporting Iran. One of the things we went after Iran for was the fact that they were helping Venezuela get around our sanctions against them. So, and yet we've dropped all the sanctions against Venezuela. So yeah, just more signal. And then the last story was this letter. So we have a letter that was sent to Iran's supreme leader. Pakistan's letter to Iran's supreme leader, a message of agreement or a final warning. This is from Sunday. Last night, this is Saturday night, Pakistan's interior minister arrived in Iran and announced that he was carrying, quote, a special letter from Pakistan's army chief and prime minister for Ayatollah Sayyid Mojtaba Khamenei, 40 days after the outbreak of a war against Iran that plunged the region into one of its most volatile periods in recent years, and only weeks after a ceasefire was announced between Iran, the United States, and Israel. this diplomatic visit has once again turned attention toward Tehran. At first glance, the development may appear to be just another routine diplomatic exchange, particularly at a time when efforts to preserve the ceasefire and continue indirect negotiations between Iran and the United States remain underway. Yet the real significance of the story may lie elsewhere. The more important question is why, at this particular moment, a message of such importance has been delivered directly to Iran's highest authority. And here's the guy presenting, the Pakistan envoy presenting this letter to Arakchi that is supposed to be given to the Ayatollah. In diplomacy, as long as negotiations proceed through normal channels, messages are usually exchanged between negotiators, foreign ministers, or recognized intermediaries, Steve Witkoff being an example. When a message is sent directly to the highest level of decision-making, however, it often signals that the issue has moved beyond routine discussions. This is precisely why the Pakistani minister's visit is being viewed as more than an ordinary diplomatic mission. The visit comes at a time when the overall picture of the negotiations remains uncertain. Donald Trump continues to speak about the prospect of a deal and insists that an agreement could be reached very soon, yet reports from various sources continue to point to significant differences between Tehran and Washington. At the same time, the ceasefire announced after the end of the conflict has not been entirely calm. While large-scale hostilities have ceased, sporadic incidents and limited tensions have demonstrated that the gap between a ceasefire and lasting stability remains uncertain. This is where the Pakistani envoy's visit can be interpreted from a different perspective. Rather than signaling that an agreement is near, the visit may instead reflect growing concern that a process months in the making could be at risk of collapse. In recent weeks, the regional countries have become increasingly worried about the possibility of renewed tensions. Having witnessed the conflict firsthand, they understand that the breakdown of the ceasefire could once again drag the region into a cycle of instability. From this perspective, Pakistan's mission may be less about presenting a new proposal and more about conveying a political and security warning. There is another aspect that has received relatively little attention. The letter was not sent solely by Pakistan's prime minister. That would be Shehbaz Sharif, who is a dear friend, close ally of President Trump. The country's army chief is also a co-signer. And you'll remember, who are the two guys? Who's really the one guy that Trump always lauds whenever he talks about Pakistan? It's the army chief, right? He always talks about the prime minister, he loves Shehbaz Sharif, but he always talks about how impressed he is with the army chief, right? So this letter was signed not only by Shehbaz Sharif, but also by the army chief, the two guys that Trump always singles out in his True Social post about Pakistan. Within Pakistan's power structure, this is significant as it suggests that Islamabad does not regard this mission as a routine diplomatic formality. For that reason, perhaps the most important question today is not what the letter contains. The more significant question is what has happened that after weeks of war, months of negotiations, and days of a fragile ceasefire, the message must now be delivered directly to the highest level of decision-making in Iran. Yet perhaps the most intriguing speculation is a different one altogether, that Pakistan's message was sent not to facilitate an agreement, but to deliver a final warning or ultimatum. In many international crises, once an issue reaches the highest levels of leadership, messages cease to be simple proposals. Sometimes they are final warnings. Sometimes they're requests for a definitive decisions, and sometimes they represent a last attempt to prevent a far more costly phase of confrontation. Even if this hypothesis is correct, however, one important question remains: does Tehran view ultimatums in the same way Washington expects it to? The experience of the recent months suggests the answer is no. During the final days of the war, threats reached their highest levels. Trump spoke of strikes that would target Iran's infrastructure and repeatedly warned of actions that could set Iran back to the Stone Age, yet the outcome was not an escalation of the conflict, but the announcement of a ceasefire. For this reason, many analysts argue that the logic guiding Iranian decision-making differs fundamentally from the assumptions often held in Washington. From Tehran's perspective, whenever the other side concludes that pressure or threats have been effective, its demand tends to increase. As a result, yielding to an ultimatum may be seen not as the end of pressure, but as the beginning of a new phase. Over the past several months, Iran has rejected virtually every lever used to increase pressure on it, from military threats and economic sanctions to public warnings by American officials. The result has not been a shift in Tehran's position, but the persistence of the same disagreements that remain evident at the negotiating table today. The contents of the letter may never become public, yet the decision to send the message directly to the highest level of leadership in Iran may signify something more important than escalating pressure. It may reflect the narrowing of options still available. So, decent analysis. Like they're weighing and measuring all the different options, the different the different possibilities of what this letter can mean. I would agree with them, though, that the fact that this message was signed by both the prime minister and the army chief, that is very significant. The fact that it was put in writing as opposed to transmitted digitally or done like over the phone, it's very sensitive. They don't want anyone intercepting this. They don't want anybody knowing about this. It wasn't sent through formal channels. It wasn't told to diplomats, and the diplomats convey the message. It was written in a sealed letter, and then the sealed letter is given to the person who is intended to read it, the Ayatollah. My guess is that this is too sensitive for the State Department to know about, too sensitive for Mossad to know about, too sensitive maybe even for like the IRGC to know about, because if we look at black hats being in the State Department and they're trying to subvert President Trump's efforts for peace because they want war with Iran, the same could be said on the Iranian side. There are probably bad actors on their side who want war with Israel no matter what in the United States. So sidestepping all of that, going, and having direct communication between Pakistan, the leaders of Pakistan who love Trump, and the leaders of Iran at a critical moment, right? That Sunday, which is also the day that Trump really turns on Netanyahu. I mean, even more so than he did a week ago. And he says, we're like, things are changing now. Like, we're going to make peace with Iran. You can go do whatever you want. Go fight him by yourself. I'm guessing that letter is connected to all of that. Okay, so the World Cup is about to begin in a week, less than a week, really, June 15th. Iranian fans are shut out of the World Cup. Tehran says organizers revoked its allocation of match tickets for supporters just days before the tournament. The U.S. and World Cup organizers have withdrawn Iran's allocation of fan tickets just days before the tournament is set to begin. The country's football federation has said the last-minute decision has left thousands of Iranian supporters who had already made travel arrangements unable to attend their team's matches. This is probably an example of the State Department, I think, probably doing this. We saw the same thing happen, by the way, to last year to the Palestinian Authority. At the last minute, they were told they couldn't, their visas were revoked. They couldn't come to New York for the UN meeting, right? The General Assembly meeting where everybody was going to formally recognize the Palestinian Authority and the right for Palestine to exist. The World Cup kicks off on Thursday with Iran set to face New Zealand and Belgium in their opening two Group G matches in Los Angeles on June 15th and June 21st, respectively, before taking on Egypt and Seattle on June 26th. Quote, the United States has once again acted to obstruct the presence of Iranian supporters at the stadiums, hosting the national team's 3 group stage matches. The Football Federation of the Islamic Republic of Iran said in a statement on Tuesday, the federation said its ticket allocation had been withdrawn in an unexpected move, leaving it unable to provide even a single ticket to supporters of the national team. So, yeah, the big news, though, is that there was uncertainty whether or not the Iranian team was even going to come and play. As of like 2 weeks ago, they were like, yeah, we don't know if we're actually going to go. So they're here now. I believe they flew into Mexico is what I saw. And then they're playing in LA, it looks like. And then they're going to play 2 games in LA. And then there's a potential, I think, that the U.S. and Iran might play against one another in Seattle. And that'll be a big deal. If that happens, that'll be appointment television, obviously. So let's wrap up here with this last story. This is just something that just came across the newswire. Gas pipeline explosions in southern Russia trigger mass evacuation. Several blasts and an ensuing fire have triggered the evacuation of some 250 homes in Dagestan. At least 3 explosions have occurred at a gas pipeline in Dagestan Republic, southern Russia, causing a major fire at the location and prompting the evacuation of more than 140 residents from the area. The incident occurred at an industrial area of the town of Kyzylyurt. I think I'm saying that right. The flames erupting from the ruptured pipeline were up to 15 meters tall, according to local authorities. A preliminary assessment indicated that the explosions and fire caused no casualties. The interim head of Dagestan, Fedor Shukkin, has said the gas pipeline the gas supply was promptly shut off, with the fire being fueled by leftover gas in the damaged sector of the pipeline. Local emergency services said some 1,400 people have been evacuated from about 250 homes in the immediate vicinity of the affected site. A 50-kilometer, which is a 31-mile stretch of the pipeline, remains closed, according to the authorities. Preliminary evaluation indicates that the incident was triggered by the depressurization of the pipeline. So let's just look up where this is real quick. I mean, we know where Dagestan is, but let's look at, because this is, again, we just looked at the SCO, North-South Transportation Corridor. And Dagestan is obviously a part of that. Okay, so again, if we go back to this, all right, see the red line? See the red line? So you see where the arrow points to Azerbaijan? Just north of that, there's the Russian border with Azerbaijan. Just north of that, on the coast of the Caspian Sea, the west coast of the Caspian Sea, that is the Republic of Dagestan. It's inside the Republic of Russia. So Russia is like, whatever, 22, 23. It's like 20-something republics that all operate under one umbrella, with the Russian Republic being the head of it all, right? So one of them is Chechnya, one of them is Dagestan. Those are next to one another. So now we're looking at, see where the red arrow is right here? That's this town that I've just typed in. That is right along the pathway of the SCO. And so let's pull up real quick gas pipeline map through Dagestan. I mean, this can't be a coincidence. You're telling me that suddenly it looks like we're going to get peace with Iran, and now all of a sudden we're getting a gas pipeline in Dagestan blowing up? Please. I was not born yesterday. Let me see if I can find a good map here. See a lot of different maps, but not one for Dagestan. The Trans-Caspian Gas Pipeline. All right. So this is a pretty crude map you see here. Yeah, so this is not showing it through Dagestan, but there could also be, hold on one second. Let me see map of gas pipelines around Caspian Sea. I mean, this could just be a coincidence. This could just be, somebody forgot to turn something off and things blow up. I mean, it happens. But, I mean, is that really what we think? Here we go. This one looks a little better. This looks a little more promising. Okay, so I got two maps. Well, three maps. This is actually a really nice map right here. Okay, I got a couple maps here. So let's look at all these maps, and then we'll... There's a Zelensky story. Well, maybe we'll talk about that on Friday. The thing that caught my eye with the Zelensky story is just that Abramovich is being mentioned as part of it. That is kind of fascinating to me. But we'll maybe we'll look at that on Friday. Okay, so here is a sea or a lake. That's not the map I want. I want this map. There it is. The Baku Novorossiysk, which is, I believe, Novorossiysk means New Russia pipeline. Look at that. So Novorossiysk, I believe, let me type that in. I think that means New Russia. And that's what they used to call, Ukraine back in the day. If I have my facts right. So it's a city in Krasnodar Krai. Doesn't say anything about it being New Russia. Yeah, so it does mean New Russia. So I think what they used to call Ukraine Little Russia, right, back in the day. And I think Novorossiysk is another thing, another term they use for it. It's like New Russia, Little Russia, you know, that kind of thing. Interesting. So anyway, you can see that it clearly runs right through Dagestan. Now, is this the Baku-Novorossiysk pipeline? That's what I want to know real quick. The Baku-Novorossiysk pipeline in Dagestan. It runs exclusively through Dagestan. It is a 830-mile pipe. It is, let's see, does it have, bear with me for a second. I want to go ask ChatGPT. This is a little side quest, but so ChatGPT, let's ask ChatGPT if does this pipeline run through? Does the pipeline run through that area, which is Kizilyurt, Dagestan? Says yes. A Kizilyurt municipal planning document says that through the city of Kizilyurt, running east-west past the Rostov-Baku Railway, the Federal Caucasus Highway, the Mozdok-Kazi-Magomed high-pressure gas pipeline, and the Baku-Novorossiysk trunk oil pipeline. So, dude, there's like a lot of stuff that runs through here. One caveat, the Baku-Novorossiysk line is an oil pipeline, not a gas pipeline. Okay, so it's an oil pipeline, not a gas pipeline. My mistake. But there is another pipeline that runs through it, which is the natural gas pipeline, and that's known as the Mozdok-Kazi-Magomed pipeline, and that runs through Chechnya, Dagestan, and Azerbaijan. So all of this is going to be part of like the north-south transport corridor. You're transporting gas, you're transporting crude oil. You're also moving rail. Like the rail is the big one. That's the big one. And so there is a rail station in this town. So yeah, I mean, the fact that all these different things run through, the Federal Caucasus Highway runs through there, the Rostov-Baku Railway runs through there. Yeah, this is a pretty big deal, I think. So attacking this town would make perfect sense. I bet you it wouldn't surprise me if this is Ukraine / CIA / Mossad all doing this to hurt Russia, to hurt Iran, to hurt Azerbaijan. And then we have a document here that is written in a language that I do not recognize, but I assume is Dagestani, Russian, something like that. We'll have to translate that another time. Interesting. Yeah. So we'll see what shakes out from this, but that is notable, extremely notable. And then this Zelensky thing that I mentioned, we'll get into it maybe on Friday if it's still relevant, but why Zelensky asked Russian oligarch Abramovich to test Putin's appetites for talks. And you'll recall that Abramovich was a Putin ally who then Putin turned against, right? After the invasion of Ukraine. Yeah, so I'll dig into that story a little bit and maybe we'll talk about it on Friday if it's relevant, but interesting stuff. Abramovich, he's from like the aluminum wars in the 90s. We've talked about him on the Book of Trump. He's like one of these weird oligarchs that's like friends with Putin, and Putin I think uses him, but then he seems to be like friends with the deep state. So, you know, kind of one of those gray hat figures that you can't quite get your bearing on. All right, so hit the thumbs up, guys. I did see we had at least one rant. And that was from Brett Hour. Brett Hour says, in parentheses, parenthetically, contribution from your neighboring redcoats. Brett Hour, are you British? Are you British, bro? Hey, man, we have no problem with the Brits. I just don't like it when these broads from Britain come in here and they try to tell us what's going to be what. Like they try to tell us what we as Americans are going to do. No. You don't do that. I wouldn't tell you as a Brit what to do, or an Aussie. I don't know if she's Australian or British, but and when you say neighboring redcoats, are you referring to the Canadian redcoats? So maybe you're Canadian, maybe you're French. Brett Hour says Canada. Well, we forgive you for being Canadian. We have friends who are Canadian here. Mrs. Bright's Canadian. Matt Airett's Canadian. So you're in good company. Appreciate your rant. If you go to badlandsmedia.tv, for those listening on replay, you can go to the boost page at the top and leave a rant at any time. I think we're all caught up with those. Yeah, we're caught up with those. So, all right, guys, hit the thumbs up, share the show. We'll be back on Friday with another episode of Geopolitics. On Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern, I'll be on with Ash for the choice. And then Monday, Clay Parikh, our friend, is going to be joining me on the Book of Trump. We're going to be talking about the Beirut bombing of 1983, which is where the whole Hezbollah story begins. That's where the whole thing begins. 200 and I think it's 80, something around that ballpark, Marines were killed in a bombing. And the official story that we were told, just like many other stories, was a lie. So we're going to get into that with Clay because he was there, and I only recently found that out. So join us Monday at the Book of Trump. This is Badlands Media. And I hope y'all have a fantastic day.
Keep your nose on the grindstone and out of the pills. Keep your nose on the grindstone.
Thank you so much for joining us, and don't forget to hit the thumbs up on this video. And a special thank you to all of our advertising partners. Please remember to shift your dollars to support those businesses that support Badlands Media.